Hello everyone, it's Ren here. And you might be surprised to notice that I am disrespecting a rule, so to speak, which is the rule of publishing videos on Sundays only at the moment. But the day and the happenings of the day dictate otherwise, because I have finally received the physical copy of my book, The Infinite Castle. Now, I know that there are some of you that are a little bit frustrated. Look at this nice product. Oh, yes. You know, this might be just my favorite thing. The fact that they included the little logo on the edge. It's just wonderful. And the abstract design. It's a pristine novel. Just to give you an idea. So that's the cover page. And acknowledgement page, and it starts pretty straightforward. Chapter 1, the crime. Ooh, that is so mysterious, isn't it? Chapter 2, the windows. What happens to those windows? One really wants to know this. I meant to say that there are some people who get a bit frustrated with the promotion I do of my books at the start of each video, and this video is specifically about the book, but within an INFJ kind of perspective. I'm going to try to give it an INFJ spin to make it of interest to those who might not be massively into fiction. Chapter 3, city scenes. What are those scenes? If I pick a chapter at random, chapter 10, a man named Max. Who is this Max? Well, let me tell you, Max is a pretty intimidating figure. Chapter 14, the first day of training. Now, that sounds a little bit more pedestrian, you might say. But let me finish with another titillating chapter. I like that title. Chapter 19, Nurse by Accident. Now, I'm not going to divulge or spoil anything, but to let you know that the full product is exactly 251 pages. So that's the ending. I'm not going to show you the actual ending, but you see 251. So it's a bit of a meatier book than the Ecstatic Soul and then the Interview, which was my first book. And it is... how could I describe it? Well, I mean, maybe the best thing I can do is to read it's at the back there. So the quote, it starts with a quote here that's used in C. Yep, it says, "Perhaps as a punishment for my crime, I have been condemned to exist." End quote. A man wakes up in a glass cube hanging above a big city. The laptop screen shows 4 p.m., but the sky is strangely black. All that the man remembers is that he has committed a serious crime and that the cube must be his prison. Of the deed itself, he has no recollection. Sleep, it turns out, is the key to reconstructing his memories. To sleep, to sleepwalk, and to write unconscious words on the laptop screen so that his visitor, a genderless creature shrouded in darkness, can do the interpreting for him. Yet as time unfolds and history itself slowly emerges from the void, the shadow of the infinite castle sketches itself in the distance, never too far, never too near. The key to the man's crime must be hidden somewhere in the castle, if it is anywhere at all. But where is the castle? Where is the castle indeed? You might imagine that the infinite castle might be a real entity. You might imagine that it is a metaphor. You might imagine that it is both. You might imagine that it is something that stands for NI. Or you might imagine that it is something that stands for the combination of NI and FE, or NI and TI. Or maybe it's infinite, it's in the distance, and it never shows itself because it represents inferior SE. In other words, it is very much possible to put an INFJ spin on this story. Maybe in this direction, it works better. So yeah, the INFJ spin that I could give on it, and that I think is fair to give on it, is that when I was writing my characters, the MBTI prism helped me. It wasn't the only prism that helped me. I mean, of course, another prism was my imagination, hopefully, people I've met, and characters from fiction that I like that informed at least part of the characteristics of some characters here and there. Obviously in a very idiosyncratic and translated fashion. So I can tell you, for example, that Code Geass, or Code Geass, I don't know how to pronounce it, the anime that features Lelouch and CC, the female character CC. CC is a big inspiration for one of the characters in this, so that could be a surprising inspiration. But the main character, there's other characters, but the main character, I would say, he's the one who's narrating the story, because essentially this it's 21 chapters, and there's 2 different temporalities. One chapter is in the present, then one chapter is in the past, one chapter is in the present, in the past, and they eventually reconnect at the end, like a beautiful convergence of the FeNi insight. And yes, the model for my main character is, I would say, partly the Underground Man of the Notes from Underground by Dostoevsky, if you're familiar with that book, but again, not exactly the same kind of man. I think more on the feeler side. And you could sort of see this book as an attempt to take the phenomenology of INFJ consciousness that I explored in the Ecstatic Soul and experiment with it by imagining a fictional story in which such a person who, for those who have read the Ecstatic Soul, and I know there's over 1,000 of you, so probably many of you in this video will know what I'm talking about, and the others hopefully will soon. There's the Alienated INFJ and the Enlightened INFJ, which are the 2 broad archetypes that I explore in the book. And I claim in the book that even the Alienated INFJ is a very productive spirit and full of creativity, and that to the extent that that's possible, it is a good thing to not over-interpret the term alienated in a negative sense, even though it's hard to because it's a loaded term. But certainly the character in this book, Mr. Lynch is his name, and you might hear a little reference to an author of fiction more in the realm of filmmaking that I particularly love, who incidentally happens to be the creator of one of the greatest INFJs in fiction, namely Dale Cooper of Twin Peaks. But anyway, so Mr. Lynch is an alienated INFJ. I think that that's fair to say. And I would say that he's an INFJ that is, if I wanted to be ambitious, what I would say is that he represents what Carl Jung defines as a state of neurosis for the introverted intuitive in his psychology of types, or psychological types. In other words, that Carl Jung's theory, and I've discussed this in videos before, is that when the dominant function is relied upon as if it were the only function, right, that it was basically every other function was repressed, well, in some sense the unconscious takes its revenge, because once a more inferior function, a less integrated function, is not allowed to rise at all, it gathers energy in this subterranean fashion inside the unconscious, and eventually has so much libidinal energy that it rises by itself in an individual manner into open opposition to the dominant function. And so what happens is that the individual has their dominant function, which is mostly conscious, and then an inferior function that is brought to consciousness as a result of the resistance to repression, but which comes to consciousness with all the archaic qualities of the inferior function, because we also have to remember that when a function is fully brought to consciousness in this, so to speak, abnormal way, they come to consciousness not with the symptoms of perfect integration of the dominant function. They come with all the inferior, infantile, archaic qualities, and when it comes to the archaic qualities and infantile qualities of SE, that includes very much the idea that one is constantly being insecure in one's environment, terrorized by one's environment. So as alienated from the external world as you can imagine, right? So this is a concept that I explore theoretically in the Ecstatic Soul. And in this book, I explore it not in terms of practical advice, but in terms of a fictional exploration. But what I would argue, and this is some of the feedback I've gotten so far, tends to go in that direction, in addition to confirming, at least prima facie, that the character seems INFJ, that there is a strong sense that the main character is living in a world of illusion upon illusion upon illusion, where there is an external world, but it's never quite certain where that is. And it's good reading. It's not that confusing, and it adds something concrete to the understanding of the INFJ psychology, because fiction is always a material that, in addition to channeling one's creative desires and possibly aptitudes as well, allows someone to go into territory that cannot be systematized, but so cannot really be the product of an essay, but can be the product of a work of experimental fiction, which I claim this is what it is. So the Infinite Castle. Now, the links are all available down below. It's, as usual, less than $10, and you can have it in ebook or paperback format. If you have any question, let me know. And, regarding the pricing, in order for me to be able to make at least a little bit of money off it, or to recoup the expenses I incurred in working on the design, I work with an agency to make it a beautiful product to have on your bookshelf. It's probably a few, maybe 10 or 20 cents more expensive than the Ecstatic Soul, but notice it's more pages, so printing costs are higher. Okay, so if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments or by email or in any way that you want, and support me, get the book, or otherwise continue following me on YouTube. I appreciate that enormously in any case, and I'll see you on Sunday, guys, because I'm not going to abandon you. Sunday is video time, and it will be exclusively dedicated to a psychology topic. Until then, enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.